Disfigurement and dismemberment, growths and transformations. Once again, the subject of body horror creeps into your thoughts. With a previous list, we touched upon 10 great examples of this genre, but that was simply not enough to satiate our hunger for it. So we made another. But before we begin, please give us a like, share and subscribe at no extra cost to you, and every new subscriber helps us achieve our goal and keeps us motivated to create new content with you in mind. With that being said, I am your host Sarah, and here are 10 more must-see body horror films. Enjoy. Number 1. Mermaid in a Manhole. Part of the Guinea Pig series of films, this one is just downright weird, and it comes with a very interesting real-life behind-the-scenes mystery. The film is basically about an artist who finds a mermaid in the sewers and rescues her. After bringing her home, she starts to develop these rashes all over, and a bunch of strange body fluid begins to ooze out of them. So what does the artist do? He uses the goop to paint her portrait, of course. Wild. Eventually though, her pain and his disgust at what he's doing overwhelms him, and he has a full-on breakdown before ultimately dismembering her. I mean, he could have just, not painted using her essence and instead returned her to the ocean or something. However, the film is full of grotesque special effects that will make you squeal, and is generally shot pretty well, even though it looks like a lost VHS tape. Here's the kicker: Marie Somé, the actress who plays the mermaid, mysteriously disappeared in 1988 after shooting this film, and was never found again. Creepy, right? This film isn't available for streaming from any major companies, but you can find it over on fedupmovies.com and the Internet Archive, aka archive.org. Number 2. Akira. One of my favourite animes in the entire world. I came across this film in a Target bargain bin of VHS movies as they were making the room for brand new media on the Blu-rays. And I brought this bad boy home to watch with some buddies of mine, and I was just blown away. The amazing animation, the fully fleshed out characters, the world building, the science, the themes, the horror, I could go on. Writer Tim even has an entire arm sleeve tattoo dedicated to this film, as everything about it spoke to it. Now, that being said, it's not a perfect one-to-one adaptation of the source material, as the manga graphic novel starts much earlier than the film events and goes even further beyond them. But to summarise, Akira has the powers of God. Yes, the God, capital G. And when a secret government organisation becomes aware of this, of course they want to try and tap into those powers to use for whatever scheme they may have. When the film picks up is the story of Tetsuo and his foster brother Kaneda. Basically, they're delinquents who formed a biker gang in Neo-Tokyo and are generally picked on by bigger and tougher crews while struggling to get by in a city that is more and more becoming a full-on dystopia, with food and labour shortages, etc. and so on and so forth. Well, one day during a bike gang battle, Tetsuo collides with a super-powered child who had escaped one of those government labs. This accident caused him to absorb some of those god energies, and not long after begins manifesting in powers akin to Superman. Super strength, flight, near invulnerability, all that good stuff. Having always been the runt of the litter, he sees this as a perfect opportunity to get his revenge. However, things go poorly for him as he cannot control the abilities, and they begin to overwhelm him, turning him into a mutated monstrosity, which eventually costs him his life. All of this is brilliantly animated and hand-drawn, by the way, with the epic score and masterful voice acting with it. High-key recommend you go and check this out, and you can find it over on YouTube Prime, Roku and Fandango. Number 3. Cabin Fever. We're talking about the original 2002 version here, not the unnecessary shot-for-shot remake which just gender swaps a sheriff deputy for some reason. Many of you horror hounds will be familiar with Eli Roth's work, especially films like Hostel or The Green Inferno, but this was his first major directorial feature, and while it was a low-budget affair, it actually was pretty creative. with some gruesome practical effects and a kind of fun take on the isolated cabin horror trope. Essentially, a group of friends are having a little vacation getaway in a remote forested area and come in contact with a homeless person who has some kind of infection going on. As it spreads to them, they appropriately get scared and try to isolate those who appear to have also been infected. But the ensuing paranoia and heavy emotion strains the bonds between them, and they begin to turn on each other. Enter a couple of local rednecks who want to bring some shotgun justice to the area, as well as a dimwit deputy. By the end of the film, there are pretty much no survivors. While there were sequels to this film, they lacked the Roth charm and took the franchise in a completely different direction. But that shouldn't tarnish what the original installment gave us. The scenes where the flesh-eating virus begins to literally melt the meat from their bones is horrific and brutal, and will have you second-guessing yourself every single time you reach down to scratch your own leg. Head over to Tubi, Prime, Apple TV or Fandango to check this out. Number 4. Meatball Machine. The 2005 Japanese horror film Meatball Machine is basically a remake of the 1999 film of the same name, but with updated effects, so we're gonna go with that version. Basically, Yoji, a grease monkey in a small repair shop, spends most of his days pining for a young woman named Sashiko. Never feeling good enough to actually go up and talk to her though. One day, however, he comes across some kind of alien parasite creature. And of course, he takes it home with him, because why wouldn't he? The next night, Sashiko is attacked by another fellow worker from the shop, and Yoji tries to intervene but gets his ass kicked. However, because he tried to save her, Sashiko returns to his apartment with him to help patch him up. This is when the film takes a very Tetsu-style turn, as the alien creature attacks Sashiko and combines with her, turning her into a necroborg, a kind of biomechanical monster. Gyoji is also infected, and because the parasites which have taken over their bodies have turned them into this kind of living weapon, they are now forced to battle each other over dominance. It's insane, it's gruesome, and filled with some over-the-top special effects and laugh-out-loud moments. Highly recommend checking this film out, especially if you're a fan of films like Tokyo Gore Police, and it's even got a sequel in 2017 called Meatball Machine Koduko. You can find this flick over on Roku, Tubi, Apple TV and Prime. Number 5. American Mary. The Canadian horror film from 2012 stars Catherine Isabelle, whom you might recognise from several horror films, and even a stint on the classic MacGyver series. The film follows Mary, a surgical student who's low on funds, and so she applies for work at a local strip club. However, while she's there, the club owner asks her to use her skills to help patch someone up, in exchange for $5,000. News gets around about her skills, and not long after, one of the dancers asks her to help transform her into a living doll, with some underground plastic surgery. I won't go into all the details here, but picture a Barbie girl with all the missing pieces, and that's what she wants done to herself. While Mary is doing all this, her technique and skills improve, which results in her peers at the school noticing her improvement. Eventually, she goes on to do more and more extreme body modification surgeries and gets the nickname Bloody Mary. The special effects here are pretty detailed. It's almost like watching one of those reality TV surgery shows. So if you have the stomach for it, it's definitely worth checking out for that alone. The plot isn't anything to write home about though, so don't worry if you feel like you're not that invested in what's going on. You're here for the gore anyway, right? And there's plenty of that to go around. You can catch this bloody good time over on Pluto, Sling, Roku, Plex, Tubi, and of course Fandango. Number 6. The Brood. Cronenberg, the master of this genre, strikes again, this time tapping into themes of motherhood and fears of body dysmorphia. Now, I have had many friends who've gotten pregnant and had children, and a lot of them have expressed concerns about what happens to their bodies during and after pregnancy, as it does fundamentally change you as you are. However, this film takes that to an entirely new plateau, as Nola, a pregnant woman with mental health issues and a previous abuse victim, psychokinetically transfers some of her rage into the fetus, and becomes this kind of symbiotic hive mother. She can then birth these deformed dwarf-like children who go out and exact her revenge, albeit they are getting their instructions via her subconscious. Giving the title of the film, she actually houses an entire brood of these malformed, malevolent creatures. And when you eventually get to see her in the birthing form, it's quite shocking to see. Once again, the practical effects on display are absolutely wild here, really pushing the suspension of disbelief, but it's the calibre of acting from those involved that ground it in a sense of reality. And while her minions are responsible for horrendous acts, she herself isn't a monster, as Cronenberg makes sure to give her some true character depth, diving into her traumas and making us sympathise with everything she has been through. Much like his other films, it doesn't have quite the happy ending you would hope for, rather much more of a bittersweet one. But you should check it out for yourself over on Hulu, Roku, Prime, Apple TV and Fandango. Number 7. Slither. James Gunn has been on plenty of people's lips lately, as he's now the head of the current iteration of the live-action DC universe, but he actually kicked off his career with some strange, comedic, but still terrifying horror films. Most audiences were introduced to him through the film Slither, a story about some flesh-eating space slugs that take over a small town, a homage to B-movie creature features of the 80s. Starring very notable names such as Nathan Fillion, Michael Rooker, Elizabeth Banks, Jenna Fisher, and Greg Henry, and many more of Gunn's usual suspects. We watch as this quirky, small town starts succumbing to this alien parasite's takeover, and eventually, as it forms some kind of hive mind to create a breeding factory, it becomes this slimy, tentacle, raunchy amalgamation of body parts. Nightmare for Japanese anime schoolgirls everywhere. In between some of these bloody kills is tons of humour, quippy one-liners, and awkward jokes fly at you a mile a minute. This isn't to say the horror factor is completely absent though, as it does offer some genuinely tense and suspenseful moments, and the visual effects are amazing. Check it out for yourself over on Apple TV, Prime, and Fandango. Number 8. Raw. How many of you out there went to college and joined a frat or a sorority? And from those of you who did, how many went through a hazing period? While in more recent years, college campuses have been getting involved much more in the activities of these social groups, putting a stop to the more extreme hazing rituals. There are still a few horror stories out there where things are taken too far and it crosses a moral and ethical line. Such is the topic in this film, as it sees lifelong vegetarian Justine being forced to participate in one of those hazing rituals, and they are forced to eat raw rabbit kidneys after being splattered with animal blood. This sends her down a spiral where she begins to have intense cravings for meat, and well, eventually leading to some extreme cannibalism. It doesn't get more bloody horror than watching someone being cut apart for someone else's lunch. And the way the film depicts it is almost sensual, like a euphoric relief when Justine is able to taste the flesh, and like an addict, she can't get enough of it. But that's not the real kicker. Wait until you see the ending twist reveal. It kind of reminds me of the film Bones and All, but with a new French extremity style approach. Definitely head over to YouTube Prime, Apple TV, or Fandango to see it for yourself. Number 9. Rabid. Another Cronenberg masterpiece. This one is from 1977 and it follows Rose and her boyfriend Hart, who get into an accident while riding their motorcycle through the Quebec countryside. Rose is severely injured and receives a special experimental treatment involving morphogenetically neutral skin grafts to be surgically attached to her to fix her burn scars. Well, this process ends up mutating her, and now she's like a vampire. She needs human blood to survive. She develops a red stinger-like thing that comes out from under her armpit, which then stabs into people to feed off them. She of course tries to stop it after she realises what is happening, even trying to drink cow blood, but that just ends up making her sick. Only human blood will do. Like many of Cronenberg films, once again the monster isn't quite the monster that we think they are, as it's not their fault what they've become, and so the story has the undertone of tragedy all the way through. I won't spoil the ending here, so I'll just say that for 1977 the effects are amazing and they still hold up today, mostly anyway. Definitely add this to your watch list if you can find it over on Tubi, Pluto, Sling, Roku, Plex, Amazon Prime, Apple TV and Fandango. Just go to Fandango. Everything's on Fandango, absolutely everything. Number 10, The Stuff. Does anyone remember marshmallow fluff, the spreadable marshmallow stuff that you could put on sandwich bread? Maybe add some peanut butter or Nutella to it. Well, imagine that, but in a little pint ice cream serving, and it's alive, highly addictive, and eats you from the inside out like some kind of bacteria. However, it tastes great. We love a silver lining. Now I should mention this film is satire on marketing and consumerism, as especially during the 80s and still ongoing today unfortunately, many companies have faced allegations or worse about the additives that they put in their food to set off some kind of chemical reaction in people to make them crave their product even more, while simultaneously actually being harmful to them, and so on and so forth. Places like Germany, the UK, France, many other countries and especially Europe, many products manufactured in the US are actually banned because of some of these additives. In the film, the stuff is actually extracted from some lake, kind of like how Slusho is made in the Cloverfield universe, extracted from some stuff growing on the ocean floor. Eventually, it begins to transform the people who regularly eat it either into zombified thralls to do its bidding, or into some grotesque combination creature that tries to consume anyone who tries to kill it. I won't spoil the ending, it's definitely something to see for yourself, so head over to Plex, Prime, Apple TV and Fandango to check it out. Thank you for checking out the video. What is your favourite body horror infused film? And is there any films on the list that you'll be watching now? Please let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to stay up to date with all our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter, also known as X, at StudioFat, or chat with us on Discord, which will be linked in the description below. I have been your host Sarah, and remember, change is good, with change comes wisdom and new life. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Take care. At this point, I'm more surprised if we don't say Fandango.